Okay, so at this stage, I'm going to start cutting the cams and the followers to size for what I need, and a little stopper as well. So I'm going to need 3 pieces of square timber. So I'm going to use a bit of pine again to cut this to size, but you could use something like plywood instead. So you need just 3 squares. If you're doing an oval cam or a snail cam, you need one of these would have to be like a rectangular shape to give you enough space to do the cam on it. But you got to think about the size of these to make sure they're not too big for the design, so it'll rotate. So you got to think carefully about how big the squares need to be. Now, just before I start cutting these to size, just using a little circle needle file just to open up the gap, because I can use a 7mm drill bit, and it was a little bit tight, so I'm just opening it up a little bit and just seeing if the piece of wood drops through comfortably, so I know that it's going to be smooth enough. And then the same on the other, so I'm just giving it a little file down. So I can see by the fact it drops through completely means that it's filed down enough, and I'm happy that it'll work. Okay, now I'm using a template, little circle template, which has been like a little laser cut, a little bit of circle for that, just so I know exactly how big the circle needs to be. And I'm just going to then draw around that onto the piece of wood. And then I'm going to use the same circle template for the follow. So I'm going to do a circle cam. So that's why I'm using that. And I'm going to find the middle. So again, from corner to corner with your ruler, you then mark off and find the middle. And the other option was I could have just drawn around it and then draw the little circle section in there as well, and I wouldn't have needed to have done this as much. But it's sometimes better to do a cross, and you know exactly where the drill bit needs to be. So it's, in many ways, doing this is actually better than using the template for the circle. You can locate it better. Now I'm doing 2 circles, one because I'm using the circle cam, and the other one's going to be the follower. I'm going to have that circular, although you don't necessarily need to. It could be square if you wanted it to be. And then just using 1 extra piece just as like a weight to weigh down the design, so that the follower kind of presses down on the cam a bit more, so it just adds a bit of pressure to it. Okay, now I'm not sure I set this, but this drill bit here is a 6mm drill because I want it to be a tight fit to the doweling. So again, it should say 6 written on the drill bit. Clamp it up in a vise or on a table or something, just so it stops it from moving around. So I've clamped it using an engineer's vise, but it could just be with a piece of wood underneath. Okay, just make sure you've gone all the way through. Okay, now I need to cut this to size, so I'm going to use a coping saw because I can go round gentle curves with a coping saw. So I'm setting it up at an angle, so I'm going to take this bit away because it's obviously the circle, so it'll be this section. The coping saw cuts best in the forward motion, so sorry, in the pullback motion. So if you pull back, it should cut, and then on the forward motion, just go gently forwards, then pull back, and it gives you a bit more control. You can see what you're doing with the coping saw on the pullback motion, and just make sure that the handle's nice and tight. Just twist. You have to hold onto this section and then twist the handle to tighten it if it's a bit loose. Okay, so the first section cut off, and just rotate it around, and then work on the next section. Fast forward a little bit. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a bit of sandpaper just to get any little bits off, so I don't get any splinters. And I'm going to use a few tools just to help me round it off a bit more. So this is called a surf form. So it just helps to plane off a little bit of the timber. So I always have it at a slight angle to the piece of wood. And you keep rotating it around, obviously using the pencil lines for the circle as a guide. Try and make sure you keep it nice and circular. So slight angle, palm on the top, on the back section here, and then you just move back and forth. Now we need a rough rasp file. Be a little bit gentle with this. It can make the edges of the wood come off if you're not, so don't be too rough with it. And then, so what I did was the cross filing technique first, where I went across the material like this. So hand on this section, hand on this, quite a bit of pressure, cross the material first, and then the draw filing, hand on both sides, and it's just back and forth. And then rotate it around until it's all the same. Okay, so just carry on doing the same thing with each of the sides to make sure it's nice and rounded, just looking closely at where you'd marked out. Same methods going through. Okay, then you can use a sanding board or just a bit of sandpaper. The sanding board is just sandpaper stuck down to a piece of wood, just to hold it in place and make it a bit easier to sand. And then you just repeat on the other pieces. You see the same technique with the coping saw. And just keep rotating it around until you cut its pieces. And then obviously you finish off smoothing it with the files and the plane, and then the sandpaper again. Now, just to finish off, you just try and put it together and just see if it works. So the first piece here is just a weight, just to hold the piece of wood down. It just has a little bit more force going downwards because of the extra weight, because of the block. Then I've created a circular follower section. Just it looks better. It can be a square as well. It doesn't have to be circular. Just looks better if it is. And you can see I'm pushing against the stick and holding the cam then in place, like the circle cam. I need to position the circle cam slightly to one side so that when it twists, it will turn the follower around. So you just need to play around a little bit and you can see clearly it's turning, which is good. All right, thank you.